All right, guys, we are back with the Screen Team. It's definitely, we're in the horror movies this go around. We've got Guy on the show, and Guy, he has, we've done Halloween, we've done Hellraiser, and we're getting ready to talk about one of the iconic horror people who have given me nightmares since I was a little kid. He still does. I'm 36 years old. I'm still scared of the guy. We're talking about Freddy Krueger. And Guy, Nightmare on Elm Street, you're a fan of it, right?
Oh, I'm a fan of it. My dad actually took me when I was 6 to the original.
Dude, you're making me feel like such a man here. I love it. I was 6. It was awesome.
I told you I was raised on this stuff, man. Literally, I had Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street on VHS. I used to watch all the time as a kid.
Yeah.
They were. It was, for me, the same as Barney for kids now. It really was. It never affected me. I loved it. So,
this is good stuff, man. Nightmare on Elm Street. How many movies did they do before the one we're getting ready to review now?
New Nightmare was the 7th in the series.
Okay.
It came out in 94, the 10th anniversary of the original in 84. And it was kind of Wes Craven coming back and saying, if we're going to end Freddy, we're going to end him the right way.
Yeah.
Before, everything else kind of ended up where it was.
The actual story, I thought, in this movie, New Nightmare, I thought it was very, very creative.
Mm-hmm. This was actually the jumping point off for the Scream franchise.
Oh.
Of Wes Craven doing the whole deconstructing the horror movie, taking a look at it and kind of turning it on its head. Whereas the Scream movies were pure satire of the entire horror genre, which ironically enough had a lot of the cliches that he created. This was the first time he thought doing kind of a meta take on horror would work, and it really did. And the idea of postulating that, Freddy is really a demonic force that can only be captured by storytellers, and he just happens to like this particular incarnation. It had been a few years since the abysmal Freddy's Dead, and that piece of crap.
Why was that one so bad? Was it just because it was comedic? Is that what it?
Well, Freddy's always been kind of a psychosexual killer, but he's also had that little clown element to him. They took the clown element to Bugs Bunny levels.
Gotcha.
And it was just a sequel should do what a good sequel is meant to do, which is further the story while introducing new characters, but making you feel for the characters that have already come before, as well as increasing the narrative. This just took a strange left turn into Distentedville, and it was just horrible. And that's kind of why it laid on the shelf as it did for a good long while before Wes Craven decided to do New Nightmare. He had actually approached Bob Shea and said, I have an idea for a Freddy film. And New Line loves that. New Line is the house that Freddy built.
Yeah.
So, what better way than to have the creator himself, bring him back to ultimately destroy him.
And not only is he back, but also Nancy.
Heather Langenkamp, yes.
Nancy's back. She was in the first two, and then...
Oh, no, she was in the first one, and then she came back as the character Nancy in the third one.
Oh, okay.
By this one, part of, and here's a fun little tidbit that a lot of people aren't aware of, the part of the plot line of this actually came from Heather's real life.
Oh, really?
The stalking aspect. She actually had a fan calling her, stalking her, pretending to be Freddy.
Oh, my God.
For a good while. And then found whatever. But this was taking elements of that. Plus, in the movie, Heather Langenkamp is married to Chase Porter, a special effects guy. In real life, Heather Langenkamp's husband is special effects. So, I mean, it was really mirroring her life in almost an eerie way.
Yeah.
And, the whole, when you saw Robert Englund as Freddy, that we know him as, coming out on the talk show, and there were kids there in the makeup and the masks and that's kind of where he had ended up. He had ended up kind of, by that point, you could buy Freddy dolls to sleep with.
Yeah.
And he was a child molester and child murderer. And this is what you want your kids to sleep with.
Right.
But he'd been kind of detuned to that point. So that's why when they bring the demon version of Freddy, he's not burnt.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to you about that.
Yeah.
The design is different, correct?
Yeah, the design was more of just flayed flesh.
Mm-hmm.
He kind of has a skin texture, and where you see the common openings of his burn, you actually see the musculature underneath, like his skin's been flayed. Then they put him into a bodysuit, which really beefed him up.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of reversed the color patterns on his sweater, and then they gave him this glove, which almost looks like he had put the blades onto his own hand, and the muscles and sinews have regrown over it.
Mm-hmm.
But he had 5 claws on the hand instead of 4, which Robert Englund himself made it very awkward. But they completely. It still looks like Freddy, but you can tell that this is not Freddy. This is something wholly different.
Yeah.
And I think doing that is a really good idea, because they actually allowed Robert Englund a little bit more freedom to explore some of the darker aspects of Freddy that he had tapped into in the first couple films that he had since kind of willed out of him through the course of the films, that they're allowing him to get more back into. And I personally think the whole meta concept, if done right, is a fantastic way to do things like this, because it starts making you question, well, where does the line end? Especially for people who live this. Because, there are multiple horror films where the actresses have had stalkers and the actors have had, obsessed fans. Where does the line end? And when does it stop being fun? And when does it actually get into traditional, legitimate horror for yourself? Not so much as in, gore and blood and stuff. And I think it worked out really well, in my opinion.
So do you think, did the scares work in this movie?
Yes, absolutely. And they're very evocative. They call back a lot of the Grimm's fairy tales that were read as kids. Mm-hmm. And unlike Disney or Warner Brothers, who gave us the fairy tales in a very cutesy way, this goes to the original source material of the fairy tales, where it was dark, where it was foreboding, where it was very threatening. And it really works, especially elements with Miko Hughes, the little boy who played Heather's son. Like the instance where his dad had died. He was at a playground. He decided to get on top of a rocket ship jungle gym. He was a good 50, 60 feet in the air trying to reach up to heaven, only to fall, be caught, and his line was, "God didn't want me." Yeah. That right there, especially as a parent and grandparent, that is just
terrifying.
That is beyond terrifying. That scares me to my core.
Yeah.
None of this stuff scares. Stuff like that frightens me. And to be able to tap into that, he really has. There's a reason Wes Craven was and still is considered the modern master of horror, is because he can find those little titches that, okay, the creepy doesn't scare you, the gore doesn't scare you, the emotional can scare you, and he finds a way to tap into that. And I personally, when he passed last year, felt a sadness, because it's going to be a while before we see another like him that can pull that off.
Out of all the Nightmare films, where does this one rank?
Oh, gee, that's a tough one. Are we counting Freddy versus Jason?
Yes, and we're also counting the reboot too.
Well, reboot's at the very bottom of the list.
Well, there you go.
And honestly, that isn't Jackie Earle Haley's fault, and we'll end up talking about that at some point, I'm sure. But yeah, no. It's easily in the top 4.
Okay. All right. The movie is called New Nightmare, Wes Craven's New Nightmare, and you can find it on DVD. Guy, before you go, why don't you let folks know about your side project, your side business where you do, makeup and stuff?
Yes, it is S&M Effects House. We offer Hollywood quality at indie prices. If you go on Facebook.com to s-m-fxhouse.com, you should be able to pull it up. I've been having issues with the site. Or you can go to my personal site, Guy McAndrew, and go to S&M Effects House from there, see some of the stuff we've done. We work with the SEMO cosplayers. I was recently with the SEMO Cosplay Festival. I did makeup all day there. Mm-hmm. And we're planning a big Halloween party. And I will probably end up doing roughly about 6-7 hours worth of makeup there.
Goodness.
I charge between $5 and $20. I never charge anything more than that because I think you shouldn't have to kill yourself to look really good.
Yeah.
It's more to get my name out there, and I like the art as opposed to everything else. But feel free to look us up on Facebook. Once again, it's S&M Effects House. And we will be... our next big thing is we're contracted to do a makeup for the stage company for their production of Arsenic and Old Lace. One of the characters has to have some kind of gruesome makeup, so...
Giddy up. That's cool, man.
We're doing that one.
All right, Guy, appreciate you being on the show. We're going to have you on very, very soon, and we'll be back next week with another new edition of The Screen Team for Guy and Chris. We are The Screen Team on KWOC.